Europe, a continent where mountains, rivers, and ancient stones carry the breath of forgotten eras, where civilizations rose, collided, and transformed the world. Its story begins with the first humans who wandered across icy plains, hunted wild beasts, gathered around fires, and painted their lives on cave walls in places like Lascaux and Altamira, silent but powerful reminders of humanity's earliest heartbeat. As millennia passed, tribes settled across the continent, from the Celts in Western Europe to the Germanic and Slavic peoples in the north and east, each carving their identity into the land. Then emerged the Greeks, whose thinkers shaped human reason itself. On their soil, democracy was born. Theaters echoed with tragic and heroic tales, and philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle asked questions that opened the doors of science, politics, and ethics. Their warriors defended their world against mighty empires like Persia, while their scholars mapped the stars, measured the earth, and laid the foundations of logic and mathematics. But a new giant rose, Rome, a civilization of engineering brilliance, political innovation, and military might. Roman legions marched across Europe, building roads, aqueducts, and cities that still stand today. Latin became the root of countless languages. Roman law shaped modern justice, and the empire united the continent under a single banner, until greed, corruption, invasions, and internal battles tore it apart. The fall of Rome unleashed centuries of chaos, migrations, and wars. Vikings raiding the coasts, Huns sweeping across plains, Germanic tribes forming new kingdoms, and a fractured Europe struggling for identity. Yet, even in the uncertainty of the Middle Ages, life flourished in unexpected ways. Knights rode under banners of kings and nobles, castles rose on hilltops, and feudalism shaped society. But it was also an age of endless conflict. The Crusades sending armies to the Holy Land, the Norman Conquest transforming England, and the 100 Years' War between France and England becoming a brutal, iconic struggle that produced legends like Joan of Arc. The Black Death swept across the continent, wiping out millions and reshaping the social order forever. And yet from darkness grew light. Libraries preserved knowledge, monasteries copied ancient texts, and towns expanded their markets and crafts. Then came the Renaissance, when Europe awakened with new imagination, curiosity, and genius. Artists challenged tradition. Da Vinci sketched helicopters centuries before they existed. Michelangelo's hands brought marble to life. Galileo raised his telescope to the heavens and dared to challenge the universe as people knew it. Knowledge traveled faster, especially after Gutenberg's printing press sparked a revolution of ideas. Europe's hunger for discovery then pushed its explorers across oceans: Columbus, Magellan, Vasco da Gama. Men who expanded maps and connected continents, though often through violence, conquest, and exploitation. As wealth poured into Europe, competition intensified. Kingdoms clashed for power, religion ignited conflict, and the Reformation shattered unity, causing wars like the 30 Years' War, one of the deadliest conflicts in European history, turning cities into ruins and fields into graveyards. Afterwards, new states rose: Prussia, Austria, the Ottoman reaches in the Balkans, and the growing influence of Russia in the East. The Enlightenment followed, a storm of ideas about liberty, reason, and humanity, pushing Europe toward change. But change came violently. The French Revolution erupted with cries for freedom, equality, and the end of monarchy. Streets of Paris echoed with anger, hope, and the roar of revolutionaries pulling down centuries of oppression. Emerging from the revolution's ashes was Napoleon Bonaparte, a military genius whose ambition redrew the continent's borders. His armies swept across Europe, spreading new laws, nationalism, and destruction, until a coalition of nations finally defeated him in the legendary Battle of Waterloo.
The 19th century remade Europe once again. The Industrial Revolution roared to life, steam engines, railways, factories, and machines transforming cities, work, and society. Empires expanded beyond Europe, especially Britain, France, and Russia, and nationalism grew stronger, lighting sparks that would soon explode. The unification of Germany under Otto von Bismarck shifted Europe's balance of power, and tensions rose as nations built armies, formed alliances, and eyed each other with suspicion. These tensions erupted in 1914 when the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand ignited World War I, a conflict unlike anything the world had ever seen. Trenches stretched across the continent. Soldiers lived in mud and fear. Gas filled the air. Artillery shook the earth, and millions perished in a war that promised glory but delivered devastation. The aftermath brought revolution in Russia, the collapse of empires, new nations in Eastern Europe, and economic turmoil. Dreams of peace did not last. Germany's humiliation and economic collapse became fertile ground for extremist ideologies. When Adolf Hitler rose to power, Europe stood on the edge of darkness once more. World War II began with the invasion of Poland, and soon the entire continent was engulfed in fire. Cities were bombed, regions occupied, and millions suffered under brutality. The Holocaust, one of history's greatest crimes, murdered 6 million Jews and millions of others in a horror beyond comprehension. Battles like Stalingrad, Normandy, and El Alamein shaped the fate of the world. When the war ended in 1945, Europe lay in ruins, buildings shattered, populations displaced, economies destroyed. But from the rubble, a new determination emerged. Nations rebuilt with the help of the Marshall Plan, and many realized that peace could only be secured through unity. This idea gave rise to alliances, cooperation, and eventually the European Union, an effort to prevent future wars by linking economies and creating shared goals. Meanwhile, Eastern Europe fell under Soviet influence, beginning the Cold War, an ideological battle without direct war between superpowers, but marked by espionage, tension, and fear. Europe became divided by the Iron Curtain, symbolized most powerfully by the Berlin Wall. For decades, families lived separated, countries lived under authoritarian rule, and freedom felt distant. But in 1989, the world watched in awe as the Berlin Wall fell and Eastern European nations reclaimed their independence. The continent entered a new era of optimism and connection. In the years that followed, Europe expanded its union, adopted a shared currency for many nations, built high-speed rail networks, protected cultural heritage, and embraced technology. Yet challenges persisted. Economic crises, debates over identity, immigration waves, climate change, political extremism, and disagreements within the Union. Conflicts also re-emerged on Europe's edges, such as the Balkan Wars of the 1990s, which shattered Yugoslavia and reminded the world that peace is fragile. Still, Europe learned, adapted, and moved forward. Today, the continent is a tapestry of cultures, languages, and ideas. Parisian cafes and Italian art, German engineering and Scandinavian innovation, Eastern European traditions, and Iberian warmth. It is a place where medieval streets meet futuristic skylines, where ancient philosophies blend with modern dreams. Europe's evolution continues as it faces new global challenges, from technological revolutions to geopolitical tensions. Yet one lesson echoes across time. Europe survives, evolves, and reinvents itself, rising from every conflict stronger and more connected. Its story is not just a chronicle of wars and empires, but a testament to human resilience, proof that even after centuries of upheaval, the continent still carries within it the power to inspire the world. In every monument, every border, every language, and every generation, the spirit of Europe lives on, shaping the present and guiding the future of a continent whose story is far from over.